I don't know how this works. Hello, I don't know if anyone is there or not. I had the wrong link. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to see you or not.
I can be on here if you want me to be. Otherwise, it's your show. It's just a KAFFEEKLATSCH, and we'll see if we get some comments from the fans. But you can and some questions. But I guess you can just start.
Is that how it works? We don't see the people?
No, we don't. We don't get to see the people. Unfortunately, you might see some of their comments rolling across. It looks like we may have a couple already in the comments bar.
I don't see any.
Yep.
Where do I see the comments?
There we are. Dyson says, "Yep, we're right where we're supposed to be." So yeah, introduce yourself and tell us a little about your background, your writing, and we'll see if we get some questions from the audience.
Okay. Well, my name is Jonathan Brazee. I am a retired Marine Colonel. I live in Colorado Springs with my wife Kiwi and Danica and Derica, my 2-year and 4-month-old daughters. I'm a full-time writer. I've been a Nebula Award finalist twice and a Dragon Award finalist. I'm a USA Today best-selling writer. Mostly I write military science fiction, but I've done military paranormal. I've done historical fiction, straight military. So I write a little bit of everything. My latest series is the Sentence to War series that I'm writing with Jeff Cheney. The first 3 volumes have come out, and I'm about 3/4 of the way through the next volume, excuse me, not the final. We got a lot more planned. Other than that, I'm just open to your questions. Anything you want to know, hopefully I'll have an answer. And I was told that there's some questions, but I do not know how to read them. Oh, wait a minute, maybe right there. Okay. Hey, James, how you doing? I have always been a fan. I read Starman's Son by Andre Norton back in the 60s, right after it came out, or maybe it might have been about the 70s. And I was so enraptured with the fact that somebody could actually make up their own universe and make up where the situation and the environment and everything else. I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. And then I wrote a short story when I was at the Naval Academy back in the 70s. And much to my surprise, it was published. And I thought, wow, that was pretty easy. I wrote another story and I sent it off. I think it was to Analog. I didn't hear anything from it. And then I was in the Marine Corps, and I switched writing fiction to nonfiction. Military, political science, race relations, things like that. And it wasn't, but all the time I'm still reading. Then when I was in Iraq, you can't do a whole lot in your free time. If you go for a run, they'll take a shot at you. So I decided I was going to finally write a novel. And so I wrote it. No one's ever going to read a novel that I wrote, right? I mean, who am I? I just wanted to have some copies to give to my mother, my brother. And so I went to one of the vanity presses and I said, I want 20 copies. And they said $470. I said, here you go. Give me my 20 copies. Well, meanwhile, they had put the book on Amazon for like $19.95 or something, $19.99, I bet. And over the next 4 or 5 years, my gosh, I made $98 in royalties. Like, wow, I'm a professional writer. And it wasn't until, I guess it must have been 2012, I was at the United Lounge at LAX, and some guy had a Kindle. I went, that's pretty cool. Can I see that? And I said, I got a story on Kindle. And he looked it up. He said, no, you don't. No, you don't. So I was kind of, wait a minute, I know I do. So I went back and I called iUniverse, and they said, well, you'd had to pay $70 more to get it as an ebook. But by that time, I'd kind of heard about self-publishing. So I decided I'll put it up. And I put it up, charged 99 cents again because, once again, who's going to read anything I wrote? And I sold 444 copies that first week. And the next week I sold 700 something copies. And at that point I said, this is okay. Maybe I can do this. And that's what really got me writing. So it was reading all the books that I loved and thinking that I had a story that I wanted to tell. Well, it kind of worked for me. I've sold, I'm closing in on $1 million in royalties right now. Anything else? I'm here to answer your questions. Normally these coffee clatches are done around a table, so it's a lot easier to look at each other's faces and eyes and just have a chat. This is a little bit different, but we'll make it work. And I see a Facebook user saying, hey, John, but I don't know if you are somebody I know. Sounds like it. Yes, actually they do. I get a lot of messages from military people. A lot of female military readers. They reach out to me an awful lot. They like my Women in the United Federation Marine Corps. They like Fire Ant. They seem to be my biggest fans. Military people write to me. They tell me their stories. I had a guy from the British military. He was in the British Army. He reached out to me and he said that he was a cook in the Army, and can I put a cook in one of the books? So I thought, okay, this was when I was writing the United Federation Marine Corps series. So I made a cook and I named it after this guy. Well, Cook actually grew into be somebody a little bit bigger, and he crossed over from the United Federation Marine Corps into the Lysander twins. And hey, Rick. And he became a little bit bigger character. And this guy started writing me more often, quite often, in fact, telling me what he thought, giving me his advice. And after 3 years, he just dropped off my email list. I was kind of surprised because, we'd contacted each other so many times. So I emailed him, and then his wife emailed me back and said that he had passed away. And I was kind of hit me. And then his son sent me the eulogy that the vicar gave at the church. And it was a 6-page eulogy. At the 6th page was all about me, not about him, not about his family. It was about me. And he talked about how he was friends with this famous writer. Not that I'm famous, and that he would help me with my stories, and how he was confined in bed for the 3 years that I knew him. And he would get up in the morning and open up his book, his laptop, to see if I had a message for him. And I was just utterly flabbergasted. And so shortly after that, I had to go to 20 Books London, and I brought a book. And his family took 3-hour trip to come and meet me, and I signed the book and stuff. And probably the most moving experience in my writing career. And so when you asked if military people reach out to me, yeah, and it's something I absolutely love. And what's my plan for the year? Well, I'm doing a series with Jeff Chaney right now, the Sentence to War series. That's been doing very, very, very well. And I initially said that I'd do 3 books, and I'd wait to see how they went. Now I've committed to 9, and we're going to try to do 15. So for the next year, I've got a short story I've got to give Craig Martell, but other than that, it's Sentenced to War. I'm going to put my girls through college with this book. And Amy asked me, how has having my twin daughters changed what I write about? I have definitely written different things. I wrote a short story that I think is the best thing that I've written, called With Time All Things Revealed. And it is directly related to my daughters, and wondering, I had a dream, and I'm wondering, I had my girls when I was a lot older. I was 61 years old when we had them, and hoping that they would be around, hopefully that I would be around as they're growing up. And so that story was directly related to my girls. I wrote The Gemini Twins, which was my first YA. Amy, your success at the Nebulas 2 years ago was also part of that. And I wanted to give them a first birthday present, so it came out on their birthday. And right now in the Sentenced to War, Kat, one of the characters, I probably would not have written her without the girls. So it has changed my outlook on life, and it has changed, excuse me, it has changed my outlook on life, and it's changed what I put in my books. Let me see if there's any more questions. Nope. So if you've got something else, lay it on me. I had a question earlier about co-writing. I've co-written with Lawrence Schoen. I've co-written with Michael Anderle, Richard Fox, and now Jeff Chaney. Co-writing is actually a lot more work because you can't just put your thoughts, in the computer. You have to consider what the other person is doing. With Richard Fox, I wrote a chapter, he wrote a chapter. I wrote a chapter, he wrote a chapter. And in order to write your chapter, you had to know what was written in the previous chapter. So it is more work, but it can be very rewarding. With Lawrence, I think I became a better writer based on the feedback and the back and forth with him. With Jeff, it has certainly been rewarding from a financial aspect. I don't think you should just jump into bed with anybody. I think if you're going to co-write, you need to find somebody that you can work with that is compatible with your style, and then just be prepared to, a lot of people think, oh, it's half the work. It might be double the work. So make sure that you really want to try it before you get into it. Any other questions? Rick, you must have a question. Rick is a very successful writer on his own. Both my experiences and experiences of other Marines. Most of probably all of my books have real events in them. Now, I've changed the name to Protect the Innocent. I shifted things around. I wrote a story for Craig Martell called The Bridge. And that was directly inspired by Colonel John Ripley and what he did in Vietnam, where he got a Navy Cross. So those are his experiences, really directly related, just came out into this book. I think, oh boy, I went almost so much of what I experienced in the Marine Corps I've made it in the books. And like I said, not just me, it's what other people have done. It helps with the verisimilitude of making it sure that it's authentic. And it's just a wealth of information. If it happened in real, then obviously it could happen in your books. Now, it says here, who came up with the concept for Sentenced to War? Jeff approached me about doing this at, I think it must have been at 20 books. And we talked about it. We never really got going. And finally we decided we're going to give it a shot. We got on, just got on, I think it was on Facebook, and started talking about it. I think I had come up with the very, very broad initial scope of what it was. And then Jeff started giving me a lot of feedback. And we went back and forth. We discussed where we wanted to go. He'd say, well, what if we did this? What if we did that? The AI in there is totally Jeff. I was there trying to make sure we were centered in realistic military life. We probably spent, we probably spent 6 or 7 hours before I typed the first word. And then there was a lot of back and forth as we're going. So even though I wrote 98% of the words, I just didn't do it on my own. Lots of back and forth. It went to his editor, one of his editors. It came back. We discussed things, and then I just drove to Las Vegas last week. I had told Amy it was this week, which is why I didn't have any any panels Friday and Saturday. But then because Michael Anderley, who wanted to see the girls, Michael and Judith, they were going to Cabo, so we had to move our trip back. But anyway, I just went back there to spend the day with him to start talking about the second and third arc and where we might go possibly after that. Right now, we're planning on doing 9 books in the Sentence to War and hopefully 15. I've got the first 3 arcs of 3 books each pretty much planned out. I'm almost done with book 4. If we still have a story to tell and if people are still interested, then we'll go to 15. But Jeff and I have to get together and really work out the 4th and 5th arcs. And I have, would you like to do any adaptations in the future? I'm not sure what the question is asking. An adaptation of what? Also, it says, also, I'm wondering how much time you spend planning and world building. Your characters and setters are amazing, so I'm guessing that's a lot. Why, thank you. I spend a lot of time. I spend a lot of the time in the gym, particularly when I'm lifting weights, planning the world, what's going to go into it. I have a really good idea of what I'm going to be doing before I do a book 1. It takes a while. I start watching things for inspiration. When I was in Thailand, it was really easy because they limit the amount of television that you can see. So it tends to be a lot of history, discovery, and so I get an awful lot of ideas from watching Discovery, nature things. I had a whole concept of augmented, well, not really augmented, humans that have been changed to be fearless great warriors. And I got that right from the Discovery Channel of the zombie mice that get a virus that makes them fearless. And because they're fearless, cats eat them. And when the cats eat them, the virus goes into the cat's gut. And when the cat sends them out to the ground, that allows the virus to recycle. And I thought that was so amazing that created part of one of my worlds. So I would say I spend quite a bit of time. It doesn't all make it into the books. I don't want to just say, oh, look at this if it doesn't really have anything to do with the story. But yeah, I do spend quite a bit of time, and I keep Bibles going so I can figure out what I'm doing as I get further along. Another question: have your choices in military equipment, materials, weapons, armor, metals, etc., in your books change over time, in part due to real developments in real world technology? Absolutely. Sheer thickening armor was one thing that I read about after I had started writing. So that came into my books. new weapons systems give me new ideas. I have my roommate at the Naval Academy is now a physicist, and he's given me ideas of things that are on the horizon or that are being developed. I keep looking at the Dartmouth websites and things that are coming out. If I'm writing about 800, 900 years in the future, there's going to be a lot of changes. Just look at the last 50 years. When I was a lieutenant in the Marine Corps, I was one of the last 3 platoon commanders to have the 106 recoilless rifle. And now, that's just in my lifetime. And now we're so far in advance of that that it's just mind-boggling. So yes, the quick answer to your question is absolutely. I have changed throughout the books that I've written based on new advances. TV film adaptions. If they would offer it, I would go for it. I would love to see my stuff on the film. I was talking with Marco Cluse, who had 2 of his stories put into Love, War, and Robots on Netflix. They screwed up one of the stories. He wrote it about the Army. The producer decided to change it to the Marine Corps, and then forgot to change the terminology. But still, that would be so cool. I am tentatively a writer for a show that's in development, but there's a lot of shows in development that never actually make it. So I'm not holding my breath. But absolutely, I would kill to see something I had. At Dragon Con, I was talking to a writer who every 3 years she gets a $50,000 check for a movie. They haven't started it, but when I talked to her, she had 3 checks already. So basically 9 years of the movie was in the planning phase. Hasn't gone that way, but yep. To answer your question, sure. I think every writer would like that, not just for the financial aspect, but just to visually see what people think of your work. Don't know which one I'd like most. Maybe Werewolf of the Marines. Werewolf of Marines has been a good seller for me. It's been popular, but not as well as my military science fiction. But other than my historical fiction, it was probably the easiest, or probably the funnest books I've written. Ever since I read Jack Williamson's Darker Than You Think, I've been a rather lycanthrophile. I like werewolves, and so writing it was just fun. Favorite piece of tech in my military science fiction. Well, I rather like the tungsticle, but that's not that odd. The tungsticle was just a big old piece of tungsten that was dropped from orbit. Initially, I made it too big, and my roommate, the physicist, asked me if I was trying to break the planet in half. I think I'm going to say this one. I mentioned it in one of the other panels. In my Fire Ant series, which is a Navy fighter pilot, she's a future equivalent of a Filipina overseas worker. She becomes a fighter pilot, but one of the problems with spaceships and that kind of stuff is heat. They build up heat. And how do you get rid of the heat in a vacuum? It's a big, big problem. And so what I did was I created a piece of technology that took the heat, transferred it into small billets, and the billets then became basically bullets for her kinetic gun. So she's shooting out these rounds that are doing 2 things. They're both killing the enemy if she hits them. And number two, it's heat management. So I think that's that would probably be the favorite thing that I developed. That's book, the first book in that series, Fire Ant, is that was my second nomination for Nebula, or become a Nebula finalist. And long as I've got the con here, that's free right now on Amazon, or it's wide free, and the rest of the books are for sale for 99 cents a piece until Thursday, I think it is. Actually, I've had a couple books for free. I moved to the perma-free for book one. So if you haven't read any of my books and you're kind of curious, Fire Ant or Recruit are probably two good choices that you could get right now for free. I haven't seen any of the other coffee clashes. I don't know if the people giving them have been, how they've been doing. This is a little weird having conversations where I could see myself, but I can't see everyone else. But coffee clashes are usually pretty fun. So for more questions, I'll tell you, this is not really science fiction or fantasy, but my most enjoyable book to write was from the Shores of Tripoli. It's a military fiction about the First Barbary War, which went from 1802 to 1805. The reason it was so fun was because, first of all, the research was just a blast. The Marine Corps Historical Division sent me a lot of stuff. I was able to find some references to the military slang at the time. That was really pretty good. One of the coolest aspects of it is the book has three main characters who join at the same time and then go off in different areas. One is on the USS Philadelphia, which gets captured, and he becomes a prisoner of the Pasha, along with 400 other people. So it's really easy for me to make a fictional character and fit him there. The other one became a Marine on a couple of the ships that fought the naval battles. He was on the Chesapeake and one of the other ships. And so it was kind of easy to stick him on a ship. And so he can observe Decatur and all these other people. And I tried to use the battles were all real and everything else. The third person I wanted him to have was the march to, the march to Tripoli, which is the first, it's part of Marine Corps history. Problem is, most of the people on the march to Tripoli were either Greeks or Arab mercenaries, and then a few of the people of the Pasha's brother. And there were a couple different, from history, there was Presley O'Bannon, there was a sergeant, and then there was either 5 or 6 enlisted Marines. And the reason I say 5 or 6 is because some people say there were 6 enlisted Marines and they gave the sergeant's name. Other people say there was only 6. Well, I chose to say that there was 6 enlisted and the sergeant, and that became my MC. So that kind of worked out for me. But that was just a fun book to write. Not science fiction, but it was fun. My biggest advice is turn on your computer and type the first word. I hear so many people say, oh, I've got this idea for a story. I want to write this novel. Well, when are you going to write it? Oh, I've been thinking about it for the last 15 years. You can't just think about it. You got to start writing. And if it doesn't turn out so well, that's okay. You're learning. They say you need to write 1 million words before you're a halfway decent writer. Well, start writing those words. That is my absolute biggest advice to anybody, is just get off your duff, turn on the computer, and type. Now, there's other things I would advise. Is a lot of this you can find going online to like 20 books. 20 books of 50K is a good place to join to get a lot of this guidance. But try to figure out, what do you want to write? What do you feel comfortable writing? Weigh and balance that against what people want to read. Now, it doesn't mean you have to pick the next great American novel. I had an internet friend who's trans, and she wrote young adult trans books that were, no, they were not romance or anything like that, but basically kids coming to grips with who they were. And it wasn't a huge market, but she was the only one in that market. And she had a lot of parents buying her books because they didn't know what their kids were going through. So she became successful writing in a small niche, but a niche that wasn't being filled. So you need to look at what you are, depends what you want to do. If you're just writing because you want to write a book and you don't really care about how well it does financially, just write what you love. You're always going to write better when you're writing what you love. But if you also want people to read it and you would like to get some royalties, then do look at what people are reading. If you think that dinosaurs in space would be a good subject, look up dinosaurs in space. Are there books there? And if there's books there, are people reading them? Do you see that the only dinosaur in space that you see is ranked number 8 million? Or are there 5 dinosaur in spaces in the top 50,000? If there's 5 in the top 50,000, yeah, people are reading it. If there's 1 and it's an 8 million, maybe try sea monsters in space. I don't know. Try something else that fits what you want to write. What I would not do, and this is not what some people would recommend, if you have no interest in it, do not write it. If you do not care one whit about Victorian Regency romance, even though that's a great genre, do not write it. I think your readers will be able to read into the fact that you don't like what you're doing. I know some people would disagree with that. They say just write whatever's going to sell, but I don't agree with that. Well, we've got about another 10 minutes or so. So anything else? Doesn't have to be about writing. Could be about anything. I don't know if you can see, I don't want to give everybody the finger. Decided to slice open my finger instead of grafting a tree. 5 stitches. Had a Special Forces medic trainee stitch it up for me. Well, once again, if you want to try something of mine, wait a minute, here we go. Question, are you going to let your daughters join the military and follow in my footsteps? If they want to, absolutely. I'd be proud of that. If they don't want to do it, I'm not going to push them. As I look at them, in fact, I'm looking out the window. Hi, she's waving at me. I'm looking out through my office door. One of them is a fireball, and she might want to do it. The other one is a lovey-dovey. I'd be surprised if she did, but it's up to them. If they want, especially if they want to go to the Naval Academy, they want to go to the Naval or Military Academy or whatever, that means all that money in their 529 account, that goes to them in cash. course, every time one of them won't kiss me, I take away $5 out of that account. My dad was pretty happy when I went to the Naval Academy, I'll tell you that. In fact, I initially got turned down for medical reasons. And I was just like, oh well, it is what it is. And my dad said, no way. We just had you have a complete physical beforehand. And he fought it. And he went to the congressman and everything else. And the congressman told the VA in Des Moines to check it again. Turned out they had misplaced the decimal point. And it was off by a factor of 10. And so, thanks to my dad being persistent, I ended up actually getting to the academy instead of just getting an appointment. So, yeah, my little girls want to go. I will support them 100%. But I have a 529 account for both of them. If they decide they don't want to go to school, that's up. I hope they do, but that's really their decision. They are little cuties. It's really changed my life, but for the better. I don't know how many people are still there watching, but like I said, well, I haven't said it yet. Sentenced to War, number 4. If you've read the first 3, I'm almost done. I should finish. I'll be meeting Amy and some other people for a little writers retreat up at Lake Tahoe. Not this coming week, but the week after that. I should be able to finish the book at that retreat. And if I do that, it should be out mid-July. The rest of the year, I'll be writing more Sentenced to War, except for the story from Craig Martell. And I'll be having specials, promos. You can now get one of my military science fiction, The Few. You can get, that was the first novel I wrote. That's for free. Recruit, which is book 1 of my biggest series, is free. Fire Ant, which was the Nebula finalist, is free. And Legacy Marines from the Lysander Twins series is free. I'll give another minute or so if you have any more questions. Otherwise, I guess we can cut it. I've got a pork roast in the oven. Of course, I don't know if potatoes are done. Yeah, I've written quite a bit outside the military science fiction genre. It's just that sells the most. Well, actually, the most I've had one book sell, or at least earn, was a straight military fiction. That was The Return of the Marines, which is the trilogy of 3 books, The Few, The Proud. Oh, I keep forgetting the third name, The Marines. And that is near future military. Well, initially it was 2018 was the first book. Now it's 2023. I think I changed it too. I've written military paranormal. I've written straight science fiction. Darwin's Quest, which is a book I really like, was my second novel, I think. And that's kind of like a science fiction version of, you can kind of think of it as Survivor, the game show, the show on TV. I've written a lot of nonfiction. My YA is science fiction, but it is not military. I like writing outside, but I got to, my people, my readers keep telling me, well, I want the next one of this, I want the next one of that. My Ghost Marines novel, I still have to finish that up. I've got one more book left on that, but now with doing 9 books with Jeff, or 15, that's been pushed back. My second historical fiction, from the Halls of Montezuma, that's been pushed back. Got a message, recruit is so good, was definitely inspiration for me. Thank you. That really makes me feel good. Doomsday fiction. I have thought about it. I have played around with different ideas, but once again, I would love, if I wasn't doing this as a job, this is my full-time job, I would experiment a lot more. Writing doomsday fiction is one of them that I would like to do. You know, I've read a lot of it. I've enjoyed it. So, yeah, I'd certainly have to write it. I wrote a romance because, well, that was on a dare. I'd like to see if I could write. I should try to write fantasy. I mean, I've certainly read enough fantasy in my life. I would like to do it, but geez, for the next 2 years, I'm really locked into the Sentence to War. Oh, and if, as you see my shirt, the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers of America, if you qualify and you're a writer, I think that's a good place to go. They offer, if you're a full-time writer, and they have health insurance. I mean, I'm saying full-time writer. You know, if you're working for a company or you're in the military that provides health care, that's not important to you. Other resources, definitely 20 books to 50K is a great resource for writers. I really just joined NINC. I've been a member for a long time, but I became a full member. So I go to the NINC conference in Orlando in September. Cons, if you want to know what cons I'm going to, I'll be at Dragon Con, NINC, 20 books to 50K, Mile High Con. That's for the rest of the year. Then I'll be at Capricorn next year. I'll be at NorwestCon. I'll be at the Nebula Conference. I'll be at right here in Colorado Springs, writer Kevin Anderson's con. And then we'll see from there. Oh, I'll be at WorldCon in Washington, D.C. in December. If you're ever at any of those cons, I love to talk to people. So look me up. And with that, we've got about 53 seconds left. So I appreciate you hanging out, especially since we started 7 minutes late. Sorry about that. But I appreciate you hanging in there. And I've enjoyed answering your questions. Hopefully it was worth your time.
Hey, if you like that panel and you're looking to continue your author journey,
or if you're just looking for a group of like-minded people,
all striving to improve their craft and grow as authors,
our community at KSM might just be what you're looking for
some reading, writing, and everything in between.
Come on over and join us at Keystroke Medium.